Listen up, soldiers. While we're out here, you will be taking all commands from the tower. And I am the tower. Do you understand?
Yes, Sergeant!
Welcome to the Tower, your dose of military news delivered with an infernal edge. My name is Magister Campbell, and today we are discussing General Milley visiting Israel. Scoop: Milley to visit Israel as U.S. concern grow over Israeli military crisis. This is from Axios.com by Barak Ravid, August 16, 2023. General Mark Milley, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will travel to Israel next week amid growing concerns inside the Biden administration about how the Netanyahu government's judicial overhaul is affecting the Israeli military, two Israeli officials told Axios. Why it matters. Thousands of Israeli reservists have suspended their service over the opposition to the right-wing government's weakening of the country's Supreme Court. Milley's visit will enable the Biden administration to assess firsthand how deep the crisis inside the IDF goes, and whether it could have any implications for U.S. forces in the Middle East. Driving the news. The protesting reservists include fighter pilots and members of the intelligence, cyber, and special operation units in the IDF. Many stopped reporting for duty or training several weeks after the Netanyahu coalition passed a law that will limit the ability of the country's Supreme Court to review government actions. Since then, senior IDF leaders, especially Air Force Commander Major General Tomar Bar, have warned of a gradual degradation in their readiness for war. The Israeli Air Force is dependent on reservist fighter pilots. The current situation requires an almost immediate preparedness crisis. Israeli reserve pilots train at least once a week in order to maintain their operational skills. Pilots who don't train for several weeks are not allowed to fly. The big picture. The Pentagon is concerned that the crisis facing the Israeli military could have negative implications for Israel's deterrence strategy and may encourage Iran or Hezbollah to conduct military provocations that could escalate the situation in the region, a U.S. official told Axios several weeks ago. The crisis, especially within the Israeli Air Force, could have negative operational implications for U.S. forces that closely cooperate with Israel in the region. It could also compel the U.S. to send more troops to the region. State of play. Barr met with a group of reserve pilots last week and admitted there is a significant decrease in preparedness. Quote, "It will be hard to restore the situation to what it was," he said, according to a briefing to reporters by the IDF spokesperson. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed outrage after seeing headlines from the meeting. In a conference call with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi, and Barr, he reprimanded the defense leaders and demanded they walk back the quotes. They refused, saying it is their duty to give the facts to the public, according to a report on Israel Channel 13 confirmed by a senior IDF officer. The incident increased the tension between Netanyahu and the IDF leadership. In a second meeting on Sunday, Netanyahu urged the generals not to make their assessments about the preparedness of the IDF public and warned that everything they say at a hearing of the Knesset Foreign Relations and Security Committee will be leaked, according to several press reports. The hearing took place earlier Wednesday. The IDF generals briefed the lawmakers on the preparedness problem, according to people who attend the meeting. Netanyahu's loyalists, first among them the Prime Minister's outspoken son, in recent days have also attacked Halevi and blamed him for the crisis. A minister from Netanyahu's Likud party said the reservists who don't report for duty, quote, should be treated like rebels. Details. Milley is expected to meet with Gallant, Halevi, and other senior Israeli security officials, the Israeli officials said. It is unclear whether Milley will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Joint Staff spokesman Colonel Dave Butler and the IDF declined to comment. The Israeli officials described Milley's trip as a farewell visit due to his planned retirement in October. He was supposed to visit Israel in June, but canceled his trip at the last minute after the short-lived Wagner rebellion broke out in Russia. What to watch? The reservists have made it clear that they will resume volunteer service only if Netanyahu announces he is suspending the judicial overhaul indefinitely. Now, let's be honest here. Limiting democratic processes leads to dictatorships, right? So the president of Israel can ostensibly do whatever he wants, pass whatever laws, and there's no oversight to second guess or delay that being put into law now that that law has been put in place. This is a huge problem for Israeli and for the U.S. If you don't think that Israeli decisions are a huge problem in the U.S., then you're not paying attention to anything at all. Like, the reality is we have always backed Israel because of the bullshit Abrahamic myths, Bronze Age ideals that people inside of our conservative, extreme right-wing government and all of the Abrahamic myth-following religions, whether it's Muslims, Jews, or Christians in our country and our government, they all want to support their homeland's government, Israel. The problem is that Israel is a near-fascist regime that is actively subjugating people under its reign. It is breaking international law by continuing to build settlements in the Gaza Strip. It ignores that international law that it supposedly agreed to originally, saying that it is their right to do so. They completely ignore the humanitarian crisis that they're creating, and the reaction to that is Hezbollah getting in the Palestinian Strip and actually attacking from there. If you remove the oppression of the Palestinians, you remove the place for the Hezbollah to actually live within the region. You ultimately will tamp it down. But Israel is so stupid and so fervent in their religious fanaticism that they can't see past the end of their noses. And no, that is not a Jew joke. The truth of the matter is that they are a problem in the region. They are not a solution in the region. And our blind support, like, we're actively sending money to them. Can you believe that? We are still sending them resources when our own country, our own troops are in dire need of said resources. But yeah, because, I don't know, some Jew created a Christian religion there in the region some, 2,000 years ago, let's just ignore rational thinking and our own people so that we can focus on myths and to guide our current international policy. This is insane. So, we also have to realize that once a government takes power away, it never gives it back. Netanyahu is saying that after whatever crisis they're going through right now is over, then he'll give their Supreme Court back the checks and balance powers that he took away. But that will never happen, because it never happens. We still haven't gotten our rights back from the Patriot Act, which we're supposed to end. And yet they're still gone. We can still be spied on by our own government, no matter what. There's no checks and balances. You don't have to get a judge's okay. They can just wrap it up under Homeland Security and detain natural citizens of this country. So if we don't even give back powers, there's no way the oncoming dictatorship of Israel will give up theirs. All right, and let's look. Weakening the Israel military by weakening democracy is not what I expected to happen. It makes me feel a little bit better about what could be a gigantic, fundamental change in the system of government with Israel. Because the military is saying, no, we need checks and balances. We don't want to be a dictatorship murdering anyone that you feel needs to be murdered or attacking anyone that you feel needs to be attacked. We need to have someone oversight over the government. And that shows that the military does not trust Benjamin Netanyahu, which is a good thing, because Benjamin Netanyahu is a fucking fanatic. He's a goddamn fascist right-winger who is trying his best to create some sort of kingdom that his religious people can then live and reign from in the Middle East. If Hezbollah or Iran decide to take advantage of the lack of preparedness, it will mean that the U.S. sends more troops into the region. I don't want any U.S. citizens fighting on behalf of Israel ever. Full stop. Nothing. Anything that has to do with any Abrahamic myth, we should not be involved in. And my sons and daughters, your sons and daughters, should not have to die for myths. And that is what will happen. That is what they're fighting over. Religious myths. It's unbelievable that it's still happening in 2023, and yet here we are. We need to stop holding other countries' hands, especially the extreme right-wing government of Israel. They have had enough of our resources. They have had enough of our support. They don't pay into NATO what we pay into NATO. They don't send the troops into NATO that we send into NATO in support for the rest of the world that whenever they need it. We need to start really thinking about what's best for us, and that is not propping up a fascist regime. Now, it is good for military personnel to stand up to their government, but I would never want to see that happening in our own government. That's tantamount to a civil war and a breakdown of our federal government and democratic norms. If the military can ignore the judicial branch, if it can ignore the president's decree, who is in our country, who leads the military, and they just choose not to listen to him because they don't happen to like what he wants them to do, or he doesn't happen to like the decision that he's making, that's huge problems here at home. So it's one thing to watch it in another country and to sort of nod your head saying, oh, that's great for them. It is a disaster for us, especially when you have people like Trump, who is facing prison time, like real genuine prison time, which I don't ever think he'll see, but he's facing it through the 4 indictments that he's got right now. He can still be nominated as president. He can still be elected to presidency, and he can still leave that prison sentence and become president if he is elected. And that means that we could very well have the exact same situation that Israel is facing right now, where a president who is a criminal is given authority over the military and starts making decisions. Now, of course, the only good thing about this particular scenario is that Trump is not a military hawk. And arguably, that's the only thing that I like about the man. Everything else, I think he's a sloppy piece of shit, criminal. But, other than that, that's the good redeeming quality of him, is he doesn't want endless wars, which pisses off the military-industrial complex, which basically runs this country. And so, while I don't want to see any moment in our own country, the government and the military splitting, because it would be a disaster, again, I like seeing it in Israel, because Israel, as bad as we are, is infinitely worse. Because at least we fight back with sectarian ideals, and the foundation of our government is through independence and freedoms. Israel's is not. They claim to be a democratic state, but when you have their prime minister stripping away Supreme Court's authority over laws that he wants to pass, you no longer have a democratic state. And it's just going to go downhill from there. We need to do everything we can in our government to protect whistleblowers in order to maintain democratic norms and prevent anything like this happening to us. I really don't want Israel to become a damn dictatorship, which is what it looks like they're going to do. And I tell you what, man, there's no joking about it. As soon as Iran and Hezbollah make a decision to take advantage of this lack of preparedness, we're going in. The U.S., 100%, without even a question. If we're supporting Ukraine still, which is insane to me that we're sending more and more money over there secretly by our president, which is, in my opinion, should be a crime, but which is untoward and disgusting, well then, we will definitely send them in, our soldiers and our resources over to Israel. I mean, it's insane to even consider that it wouldn't happen. And our citizens, our military personnel, do not deserve to die for someone else's myths. All right, soldiers, that's all I have for you today. Company, I can hoot!